What up, guys? Welcome back to episode 8 of the DBT podcast. I'm your host, David. Today I'm talking with my buddy, Jeff. We're going to talk about healthy eating at your desk and strategies you can do to become more healthy throughout the day at work. So tell them a little bit about who you are and how you got started in the fitness industry.
Hey, David. Jeff Simmons. I own Third Power Fitness. Move, lift, and recover is my motto. Those are my three main points. I got started in the fitness industry, I want to say in 2014. I have a background in physical therapy. So I was working as a physical therapy assistant. I thought the job was boring, and I got turned down from a couple of the doctor of physical therapy programs, and I figured I wanted to do something a bit more exciting. I figured personal training was a good way to go. I played sports pretty much my whole life. So being in the gym and like the weight room was like a natural thing for me to do. So the transition was pretty cool. That's basically it.
That's an interesting background. Yeah, I found a lot of people try to go into the physio side, and the practical side to it and the rehab component is really cool. But combining it with fitness really adds another element because a lot of people think that you're just going to heal the injury and then you're going to do your exercises for a few weeks, few months, and go back to normal. But really, it's about adopting a fitness routine to prehab your body for the rest of your
Exactly.
life, and that's where
Yep.
fitness comes in.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't see that. They just want the quick fix, but really, fitness is more than just like looking better. It's about feeling better and staying healthy for the long term. And that's why we're going to come and talk a little bit about healthy strategies for eating, strategies for eating healthy at
Let's
work.
do
So
it.
where would you get started with that for someone who is a 9 to 5 or they're desk bound, they want to eat healthy, maybe they have fitness goals, or maybe they just want more energy and to boost their
Yeah.
productivity? Where would you get started for that?
So my main target market is moms. So I have a lot to go into this topic. So most of the people I train, they're moms, they have kids, and they work. So yeah, a big question is how to stay on top of their eating at work. My main piece of advice is to meal prep. Um, a lot of people, they might find meal prep boring, but it doesn't have to be boring. So usually meal prep is like my number one thing I tell people to do. So, taking, 1 or 2 days per week to make all the food that you're going to eat that week, and then just put it in some plastic containers and take that to work. That's like the simplest piece of advice. Because it's really hard. Like a lot of people, they work and they work near like a fast food place, or their work environment might have like a like a Starbucks or like a cafeteria, right? So I think when you have your food prep, kind of like you just said, it cuts down on the temptation, and
There's so
you're
many
less tempted
temptations.
because you've got your food made already.
Say, for example, I wanted to meal prep, but my cooking game wasn't the strongest for someone who is used to eating out a lot. What would be some resources for them? Like for me, for example, I like things that are easy, like prepackaged, pre-portioned, like hard-boiled eggs, or prepackaged, pre-portioned, like Greek yogurt. I find those things are good when you like. I find meal prep is easy when you want it to be like cold food, stuff like that. But the hot food you can kind of save for when you're home for dinner. Like have a salad with chicken. That's simple. Have like tuna. Have something easy. That way it doesn't need to be hot or cold. It's just something that you can consistently do.
Right. Yeah. To go on with that point, it is a lot easier to pack like cold food. Usually like a sandwich or fruit or like yogurt. Those are all pretty simple things to put together and pack with you. Um, those are like three of like the go-tos if you either can't cook, or if you do have like the resources and the money, you can find like a meal prep like company and service and actually pay for them, to cook your food and pack it for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Now that's if you want to go that route, but
Yeah, there's a lot of these services around, but I feel like long term it's so important to learn those cooking skills because you're eventually going to improve your
oh
nutrition.
sure, right,
Understanding just by
right,
going through the process of cooking, you can work with different ingredients, see what spices your body responds well to, see what kind of
yep,
sources of carbs feel you best, and that's where it really becomes individualized, where you can you can plug and play, kind of see what gives you more energy. For example, just do carbs. What kind of carbs feel your workouts best? Do you like having a little bit before? Do you like having a lot before? These things are really, I find for me, it's once you figure that out, you just eat the same thing almost every day.
yeah. I mean, I pretty much go through that now. Like I'll get into the habit of just prepping the same food each week. It might be like chicken and broccoli, or like chicken and green beans, and like rice. I just find things that are very, very simple, and when you cook them in batches, you don't need to worry about it. And to go back to your point, I think it does. Yeah, it does teach people to do it by themselves, and to like mix and match certain things, and see like what foods and macros that work best for them. It's kind of like the saying, you can give a man a fish and he'll eat today, but you teach a man to fish and he'll eat for life.
Oh, that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite quotes. It's really hits home. So for say someone wanted to, they're gonna get started. They would you advise them to get started with macros right away, or would you advise them to just start meal prepping, start learning how to cook, and then as they're becoming more skilled with it, to start introducing like macros, for example, knowing how much and what to eat, and building on the layers from there, or
Yeah,
just trying to
I
approach all at
prefer the
once.
approach of just get them to learn how to cook and just pack food first. Just to get the most basic, simple thing done first, and then we'll be concerned about the macros at like a later point. But I just like to take very small steps first, just to get them in the habit of actually making their food and packing their food. Because a lot of times, if you give people too much at one time, like it becomes hard to do, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's almost like taking small actionable steps, like just showing up at the gym 2 days a
Exactly.
week,
Yep.
then 3 days a week, and then four, and then starting to meal prep for 2 days in advance, then 3 days in advance, and then figure out how much you can do without it kind of going bad. Maybe you cook your dinner and you freeze it, you warm it up, or you have it on a plate in the microwave, you pop it right in, you get home from
Exactly.
work late, and then it's
Yep.
just ready. So it's adding the
Yep.
layers on. Because eventually, for me, I'm at the point where I relatively eat the same foods like day in and day
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
but I also have that understanding of balancing it when I'm eating out. So
Oh.
I'll know if I
Yep.
skipped it. So for me, I don't really like. I'll eat breakfast, but I don't have a set lunch because I'll train mid afternoon. So I'll have like a Greek yogurt for a pre workout gives me like 20, 30 grams of carbs
Right.
in
Right.
there, and then my lunch would just be like a late lunch or an early dinner or a second dinner because I don't see nutrition as breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. I'm trying to see how I can fuel my
Sure. Uh
workout
huh.
and stay satiated throughout the day. Because it's really important to, like, you could like blow all your macros, like eat 1,000 calories, 2,000
Right.
calories by
Right.
lunchtime.
Yep.
And then say you go to the gym in the evening, you're not balanced. It's about that energy flow kind of balance. You could go to the gym at night and be like, shit, I'm hungry. I just
Yeah.
did some cardio, but really you're
Exactly.
not hungry. You just boom through your calories. It's kind of like a balance game, a guessing game. Like you want to choose the foods that will keep you satiated, but and also fuel you, and you don't want to like have those empty
Right.
calories.
And yeah, you just made a good point too. When you just said that you saw nutrition as a way to like fuel like your training, and I think that's a great way of doing it. Like for me personally, and I know you did it too last year too, as well. Like I fast, so for me, like I don't really concern myself like with breakfast and sometimes lunch, just because I have so much to do. And then like my last meal of the day or two meals, I'm a bit more lax on like the macros and stuff like that. But it is something that I do suggest like the people that work. Not that you have to fast, but it can be a strategy that can be helpful just in terms of you don't have to worry so much about food in general just because you don't eat. um, and I do find it to be a useful tool, but for like me and people that work as well, I think that they should view nutrition as a way to fuel how well they work and how well they do their job. Exactly. Yep.
They focus and concentration. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly, man.
Because a lot of
Yeah.
times fasting, the main benefits that I saw when I was doing was the increased focus and attention in the morning. You have that crystal
Yep.
clear clarity. A lot of times people are like, oh, I need my coffee, and oh, I need like, oh, let me have like a donut or
Yep.
some carbs with my
Yeah, they're
breakfast,
tired.
and
Yep.
they'll
Uh-huh.
have that instant spike, and then as soon as it drops down, they'll start feeling like low focus, low concentration, and they'll start to blame the
Yep.
foods they eat. They need more food, but really that's when you can experiment and dabble things like intermittent
Yeah, man.
fasting because
Yep.
that initial rush of clarity in the morning can be really
Yeah.
helpful to get over that slump and to monitor your nutrition. So let's rewind a little bit. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about the science behind it and how fasting
So
works?
basically, the clinically proven benefits are like the glucose levels in your blood go down just because the insulin spike is not there. So basically, the beta cells in the pancreas, they produce the insulin each time you eat, because each time you eat your blood sugar increases, so the insulin is produced to neutralize that spike in the blood sugar. So basically, when you don't eat, there's no blood sugar spike, so your body becomes more sensitive to the insulin. I definitely just gave like a super like a super short thing.
Yeah, but pretty much those are the hormones that control and regulate hunger. And then the way I experience, you start to adapt to fasting and really becoming in tune with your body. So it's not so much
Yeah.
just doing that to balance out the hormones, but it's doing that to kind of give you more energy because when the spikes in your hormones are always up and down, it really can make you tired, especially that like afternoon 4 o'clock slump is the hardest I find for when I used to like work a desk job. You're like mindlessly
Right.
snacking,
Yeah.
trying to get some energy to make it through the day. It's 4 o'clock and all you want is some coffee, but nothing is
Right.
working. That's when. So, what are some strategies to kind of avoid that? Would you say fasting could help with that, and then maybe having a first meal like earlier before you
Like
have that crash?
the crash in terms of like the food or like the time of day.
No, just like like the afternoon kind of like people are say they're at their desk, they haven't started fasting yet, and they're like, oh, I need some energy to get me through this day. Would it be something? Should they go for example, like caffeine first? Should they go
I
for
wouldn't
having a
say that
meal?
caffeine's a bad idea. I do think that fasting helps. And this is a little off topic, but to be perfectly honest with you, sleep. Yeah. Like, you know, some people do actually work in places where you can actually take naps, but like just trying
For
to focus
reals,
on getting more
underrated.
sleep, to be honest, is probably the best way.
It's hard when you're expected to sit there 9 to 5 and not take breaks. Like in my ebook, the Deskbound Therapy Guide, I talk a lot about how to boost your productivity. So the period you spend sitting, you're productive, and don't waste time sitting if you're not going to be productive. So plan the task before you get there. Be productive, get it done, and take your breaks. That way, you're not just sitting there and having bad posture and being unproductive. At least, like if you're gonna sit and you're gonna work, just have a task at hand, get it done, and try
That
to
makes
be
sense.
productive.
Yeah. And then you mentioned like the mindless food or like the mindless snacking. And right.
Yeah, like empty calories can really be dangerous when you're working your desk, especially want to lose weight. Like a lot of those like
Yeah.
things labeled healthy
Yeah.
snacks are really
And
like not
I
healthy
do think that's
snacks.
where fasting can help from the terms of being aware of like the hunger cues and just being aware of what you actually feel. And then I think the more that you get better at being like mindful of how you feel, the less inclined you might be to like snack on foods because you're actually aware, like, oh, am I actually hungry, or am I just not concentrating on my like work? Am I just on social media? Am I just like not paying attention? Like,
It's interesting because yesterday I had a conversation with another friend how food is almost, we have like a relationship with
exactly.
food.
Yep.
It's
Uh-huh.
comforting for us, and how when you're bored, you just think of
Yep.
eating food and just something that's always in the back of your mind. So I find sometimes strategies are, because this kind of comes more into the psychological side of like what fasting and how it teaches you to
Yes.
listen to your body, but
Absolutely.
also like that's a big one there. Like the hormones, sometimes it's just like the hormones, sometimes it's in your head that you feel you
Uh-huh.
need to eat more, and this really comes to it's a constant battle. But what would you say is a good way to kind of learn to kind of manage those,
Yeah,
the psychological
I
side?
do find that to be challenging, especially during like a prolonged fast. Things that I've found that help are drink more water, one, and two, just being concentrated and just like if you have things to do. I think it's
Of
it's a
course,
bit
yeah.
more challenging to fast. Like if you're just at home and you don't have to work or you just don't have anything like to do because you don't have anything to keep your mind away from food. So you just like sit there and you know, constantly think of food.
Oh yeah, for sure. Even for me, when I used to fast, like my standing desk is in my kitchen. So when I was
Sure.
home, it'd be awful. I'd just be like, I'd be pacing back and forth, like doing paperwork and stuff, and I'd just be like, when is this fast over? But really, I found it was most effective when I was like leaving my house early on the commute, and by the time it's already 12, 1 o'clock. Like I find it's a good way to avoid like taking an hour to get ready in the morning. You're just in and out. You don't. That's another good way it can be implemented if you just find yourself slow to get started
Yep.
in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Like for instance, like today, I've been out and about since like 5. So for me, like I haven't really had time to even think about food. So food isn't really a concern, but I'm also fasting at the same time.
I think it comes really down to habit building because for you, for example, that's a really good way fasting works for your lifestyle.
Right.
And
Yeah.
another way I find works is, for example, like the meals you can eat healthy, then you're gonna eat. For example, if you know you can eat a healthy breakfast
Uh huh.
every day consistently, then do that. And if you know your dinner is also gonna be healthy, but if you're concerned about the middle of the day, focusing on this is if you're tracking your calories, for example,
Right.
like for me, I used to like I'm killing like a good amount of calories in the morning
Yeah.
and at night, and in the middle I don't really like allocate that much because I know I can eat healthy and I can hit my macros at that time. So maybe it means having a dinner sized breakfast or and a dinner and then another big meal. And you don't necessarily need to be like straight on fasting, but just learning how to find when you can hit those macros is
Yeah.
important.
Actually, I haven't heard that strategy, but that makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, like if you really do just concentrate on the things that you know for a fact that you can do well, just concentrate on those few things. Yeah, I think that's a very like smart thing to do.
Yeah, because if you know you're gonna be home, I'm like, oh shit, I'm like, say you go to the gym, it's
Uh
five,
huh.
6 o'clock, and you're like, oh, I really want a meal before. But if you go, you get something light, for example, like you have that Greek yogurt, you pound that, you're down in a minute, you got your carbs, and you're like, like, oh, I'm not gonna have this temptation on my way home to go and be, like, oh, there's no food prepped, I'm gonna
Exactly.
go eat out. But if you know that when you get home, there's gonna be something healthy for you, and you know the rewards of like sticking to your nutrition, it's gonna be so much harder to
Yep.
cheat. And I find for me, it's about that making it hard to cheat, making it hard to say yes to the
So,
temptations.
what is your beliefs behind cheat meals and cheat days? Like, do you have like a cheat meal or cheat day, or do you even think that those need to be used? How do you look at it?
I like to give my clients like a refeed day
Yeah.
if they're like on a diet, for example, where I'm not gonna like, well, they're usually you want to have a bit more carbs, but sometimes I'll be a bit more lenient, be like, yeah, you can like within reason like have like one meal that like might go over a little bit your macros just to have that breadth of room, but also I find like I just fit the foods in I like. I find if I get into that binge cycle of eating out a lot, I find it hard to have that willpower. And the more times you can reinforce the good behavior from saying no, the better it is. I find like sometimes like you'll have that cheat and you'll be like, oh, it's not worth it. It wasn't even that
Yeah.
good. It was just in my head. I really wanted to do it. And I find like over the years, you start to really understand and you have the memories and you think back from going through the struggles, like, how did it
Yep.
feel the
Uh-huh.
last time? How am I going to feel if I eat this? And there are times like yesterday, I was like, you know what, I'm going to have some sushi twice yesterday. I had sushi for lunch and dinner. I'm just like, whatever. I made it my refeed because I give myself 150
Yeah.
extra carbs a week. I'm like, let's
Right.
move on. I'll just kill the workout tomorrow. But I think they're like someone definitely who's starting, they need to
Uh-huh.
lose a lot of weight. They got to be a little stricter. But like once you're in the game a little longer, there's a little more flexibility in terms of I never even consider it cheating. Like even when if I'm eating like baked or air fried French fries, I'm like for me it's not cheating.
Sure.
It's in my
Yeah.
macros in. And like if you're gonna have those cheat things, just kind of like fit them in every day. Like I know a friend who will have a beer every day. It's in his macros
Uh-huh.
every day,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
like it's part of his lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like it's in there once a day, and it's gonna
Yeah,
prevent the binging
and
behaviors.
that kind of comes down to like if you're aware enough or like you're mindful enough or like that you're going to have that beer at night, then you are aware of maybe being a little stricter with your carbs or your macros for like lunch so that you can fit in that beer so it doesn't kill you. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Right.
it's super important to look ahead, like and plan again when your energy levels are, but especially going out. Like if I know I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna kill the carbs at breakfast. I'm not gonna have any carbs. I'm gonna just have some eggs
Exactly.
with some
Yeah.
like some fruit or something light. And then my lunch will be like I'll have my
Yeah.
Greek yogurt still. I'll have like lettuce and chicken. I'll just save all my carbs and a bit of fat. So you have that wiggle room
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
never really know.
that's something that I preach to clients, and especially like the busy ones and ones at work. Like a lot of them, with like families, they know beforehand that they might go out with, like the girlfriends like that weekend or like the Friday night, wine night, and things like that. So they kind of know during the week to be a bit more strict with their calories and the macros to kind of make room for like the Friday night stuff. Uh huh.
So coming down to that and avoiding like binging and controlling your strictness throughout the week and making sure you have like a more relaxed weekend with still some self control. How would you avoid? I know this is a real common issue when you start fasting. How do you avoid that binge like that you fasted 4 to 6 hours after waking up? How do you avoid that binge where you're just replacing all
Again,
the
I think it
calories?
really just comes down to mindfulness, just which takes time too, though, and it takes time to know what like the body needs. For me, it's just like a mental thing. Like if I were to break a fast, usually I tell people like very fast digestible carbs, like a piece of fruit, and then like yep,
Yeah, these would be my
exactly.
go-to. I would always break
Yeah,
my
and
fast with an
then
apple.
probably a main thing to avoid like the binge or like you might feel like you could binge is to eat slowly, eat eat very slowly and be aware of like how the food tastes, how it smells, like actually be like in touch with your feelings and the food. I know that sounds weird, but
It's true. Eating's an emotional experience. You feel good. It makes you
yeah,
feel good. You want to enjoy it. You want to savor it. You don't want to like swallow it and scarf it down. And you're also getting more enzymes too. If you're not chewing your food, you can't really break down the food barrier and you're not going to really absorb as much
that is a
nutrients
very
too.
very good point. Yeah, so I think that's probably the best way to avoid a binge. Like if you do fast, and like to binge in general, because that's also a major thing that we all see, like around us, people who do binge eat, which a lot of times is an emotional thing that is usually unrelated to food, but like the unresolved emotional issues, they manifest themselves in the form of food. So people might eat to cover up or to help cope like with some emotional problem.
On the previous episode of my podcast, I talked with Craig Valentine about his concept of
Oh,
having a
cool.
not
Yeah.
we talked about this concept of having a not to do list. Where do you see something like that could be
A
helpful in terms
not
of
to do list?
nutrition? Yeah, like you know what you're supposed to do, but like not he lives by his not to do list. Like for example, go to sleep at this hour, don't drink during the weekdays. Just like he says by psychologically saying I don't do these things, it's a lot easier than having like this list in the back of your head. They're almost like rules to
Yeah,
live
I
by.
actually do like that approach. Like I've never seen it that way, but it definitely makes sense. Like I kind of do it myself. I just never really like a not to do list. But yeah, I think how I see that is, yeah, they are
Yeah,
rules to
conceptualized it.
live
Yeah.
by, and they also give you like a sense of purpose or like an identity that you can live by. So, like, if you consistently tell yourself or you write down, I don't drink on like a piece of paper, and you were to put that on like your bathroom mirror or like somewhere on the house, and like you constantly see it, I think like repeating that kind of it gets into your head, and now you identify with a person that doesn't drink or doesn't do like these bad things. If that makes sense.
I really love the psychological side. It's
Yeah.
really like complicated to talk about, but when you've gone through it all, really it's interesting to go back and reflect on the experiences. Like, and like you really understand the times when you were binging and the times you had less self
Uh
control.
huh.
It's interesting, like how for example the holidays, how one like a 1 2 week period can really throw you off your game
Sure.
mentally. And a lot of my friends who work out too, we talk about how we're just we even if we've been in the game a long time, taking it slow when you're coming back, just reinforcing those old habits, understanding what you have to do differently.
Sure. And like a little personal story, like that I relate to my clients. Like there's times where me and my girlfriend might get into some like kind of fight or like a back and forth type thing, and I get like really stressed out, so I might drink. And it took some time to like be like aware of like, why am I drinking? Like, do I actually need to get this drink? And it took me a while to like realize, no, like I'm consciously doing this because I feel stressed out. And like a lot of my clients, they might go through a problem at home, and they carry that into the workplace, which leads them to eat things that they maybe shouldn't eat, and they look to food to cope with the problems they're encountering at home.
Yeah, it's really interesting how we have these behaviors, and that's where having a coach can come in. They can kind of, like, I know we work with a lot of people. We look at their lifestyle, we look at the triggers, and we try to give them that
Sure, yeah,
accountability when they're going to binge and try to give people strategies when they're having these binging behaviors or when they're just struggling with their nutrition in general. It's
yeah,
always good to have someone, or even I even talk about just making friends at the gym. Even if you're not the most social, just it helps a lot.
uh huh,
Like if you skip, like for
yeah,
example, when I'm not there, and if there's people like, yo, dude, where you been? And that shit keeps you going. You're like, yeah, I was slacking, dude, but I'm back now. And everyone, when you have that reinforcement, even if they're just acquaintances,
yeah.
it
Oh,
all really helps.
right.
So I also wanted to talk a little bit about your motto, "Win the Day." So just what does it mean to you? It's really cool.
Yeah,
It
kind
kind of
of
hype.
just comes from like a mentality of taking life each day by day and being in a moment, and just concentrating on doing the best that you can for that day and putting all you have into doing your best. If it's school, if it's work, if it's a business, if it's the gym, and concentrating, putting it all into that one moment, and then when the next day comes around, doing the same exact thing. Into like trying to accomplish or doing too many things at once can be very challenging to do. But if you just concentrate on what you have to do during that day, I feel like your willpower is stronger. Get the things done that you need to in that day. And like if you wanted to even break that down further, when like the day, when the hour, when minute, like just being in the moment and putting all you have into like that particular time.
Yeah, you really got to be in tune with yourself. But I think even on like the worst days, just be like, or even starting the day, just like having that to-do list or just having that plan and just feeling like you're gonna win the day, even
Sure.
if you're having a shitty day, just like even saying it kind of gets you going, like win the day. Just you had a good set, you pump your fist, it's kind of like sports. It's a way to
Yeah.
kind of show your
Yeah.
emotion.
I think like too many of us, like including myself, we get caught up in like a bunch of things that go around us. If it's like the people like at work or like social media or news, and I think coming back to center and just concentrating on what you're doing in that moment and to like conquer the current moment that you're in, and then just carry that into next task. And then when the day is over, I think it's important to either to like journal or write like what you did well that day, what like you could improve on. And then now the next day, you got something to look back on, and it gives you like a like notes or journal like to keep you accountable for each like task that you are doing.
Yeah, it's a great concept. Craig also talked about how he has a daily gratitude journal. He'll
Okay.
write down some
Yeah.
stuff in the morning and at night, just before he does the meditation. Just daily gratitude doesn't have to be long. Just be like, I'm proud of this. These are my goals for today. These are my goals for tomorrow. This is something I need to work on. Just writing it down, the act of
Uh-huh.
reflection can really help with your overall well-being, more than beyond the fitness.
Right.
Just getting out of your head. You don't want those
Right.
thoughts to sit
And
there.
I think it's something cool that you do in terms of like the realm of fitness, and when people just think, oh, just go to the gym and lift weights or hop on a treadmill. Like when you concentrate on people's like the posture is like a huge thing in fitness that like a lot of people don't take into account, but your posture can make you feel a certain way too. Like if you stand up with your head held high with your shoulders back, you feel good about yourself.
Can affect your mental health. Yeah, if
Absolutely.
you're confident. And then when you're slouched, you feel like inside like people are looking at you and people are judging you, and you like
Right.
it's not even if you're not in pain or anything, it doesn't come across as
Right.
confident. You don't see like a lawyer slouching or like a cop slouching or any like these public figures, like any politicians, like they're upright, they're formal. Like even if it's like not, and it shouldn't be forced. It's just something you work on habits towards the day. Like a lot of the times if you're slouching at your desk or even eat when you're eating lunch, like simple things like it's just gonna your body's gonna adopt it as your resting position. So if you just put in the effort, you focus, you do your fasting, whatever you need, you take your
Exactly.
breaks, you be
Exactly.
productive,
Yep.
and just spend those minutes there. Just like
Sure.
it's just like the meal prep. You spend 5-10 minutes here and there on your posture, and it all adds up. I guess you have a lot of experience there too with your physical therapy background. Do you still incorporate mobility or any? I'm sure you do some stuff with your clients like
Yeah.
that.
It's primarily like when the session is over, like if it's in.
Mm-hmm.
So if I train people in person, I do like some sort of flexibility routine that's based around like things that are specifically tight on that particular person. And then as far as like posture from like the hips up, like the thoracic spine, is something that I've always had like personal problems with, um, and that's something that I'm like constantly trying to improve on too. So
It's hard because we're naturally designed to be
exactly,
able to go
yep,
into flexion more easier because the thoracic
right,
spine is already rounded forward, and then that's a lot of times why it's hard for people to get that extension because if you haven't been working on it for a while, it can be really hard to get those muscles in the upper
yep.
vertebrae
And then it
moving.
can make certain things that you do in the gym harder too. Like if you have poor thoracic flexibility, um, certain things are just harder. Like doing a front squat with like poor mobility, it like sucks. Yeah.
It's impossible. You
Right.
can't you can't you can't stay upright, let alone having weak
Yep.
wrists and tight triceps. It's a front squat's a very functional but
Exactly.
challenging position. But your point also brings me to the people will come into the gym and they won't be able to move, and it doesn't frustrate me, but it's annoying. I constantly see the cycle. People they'll do an overhead press and a bench press.
Oh
They
yeah.
won't touch their back. They won't have the range. They won't
Yep.
have the shoulder flexion to press overhead. and they don't have the thoracic extension to get the shoulders back in the bench press. And also, the biggest thing I see is people don't know how to turn their damn lats on, and that's a huge problem because I know everyone thinks the bench is not functional and it's a bro exercise, but really, I find it's really good to teach
Sure.
you proper shoulder mechanics. Learning
Yep.
how to use the lats to stabilize your shoulder is
Sure.
so important for any movement. Squat, you need your shoulders back. Bench, you need them back. You need to get them tight, and I find it's really good to teach you how to kind of multi-use. You're retracting your
Absolutely.
blades and flaring your lats, and I find it's good if done right, but it's taking the right
Exactly.
steps when you're
Yep.
first coming to the gym. I think it's a good example of the bench press because everyone does it. Everyone knows what it's about, but it's very
Yeah.
hard to do
Yeah. I
properly.
mean, like the bench press done right specifically, you could call it like a full body like thing. Like you're actually using your whole body. Yeah.
Yeah, you're using your legs, your hips,
Yep.
you're
hmm
flexing your glutes. Everything's working to help stabilize, and that's when
Exactly.
you get the overall effect. It's not just your chest. Like your chest is not really the one doing it. Your lats are
Right.
doing the work, and
Yep.
your chest is kind of just getting loaded during the movement. Just a quick recap before we let up. Do you have any last strategies for eating healthy at work? Anything else you want the followers to know on this episode?
I'm trying to think. My main thing is I don't want people to stress so much about food and to consume their lives with like getting the like exact perfect ratio of carbs and proteins and fats, because it can become something that overpowers your life. And food is a like there's an emotional connection, there's a spiritual connection for some people, and I want people to actually enjoy food too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like it can be hard. It's so hard to not get consumed, especially when you're first starting. You think if I hit the nutrition and I dial this in, then you're gonna get the results. But really, it's more than that. It's. I rather you be consistently hitting your nutrition 75, 80, 90% of the time,
Exactly.
and
Yep.
then going so hard, you lose your friends, you have no social life. It's
Yep.
really the balance, because honestly, like you don't want to lose your social life. You still want to be able to go out. You don't want to be that guy who's like bringing meal prep to parties and
Exactly.
stuff.
And on that note, I think one more important thing is just being consistent. Consistency. Well, for those who are trying to lose fat, it takes time. I know that's hard to hear, but it takes time. It takes time. Yeah,
Yeah, a
man.
lot of times you'll see these 30, 60-day
Exactly.
transformation programs, but where the heck, what are you going to do afterwards? Like, so what is 90 days you haven't hit your
Yeah,
goal, or
man.
maybe it's going slower? What are you going to just give up? You gotta think
Oh
the
yeah.
long term. Like, this is how I looked
Yeah, man.
last year compared to this year. Like, 2 days, 2 bad days a month is going to do nothing. If you hit your macros 29 out of the
Yeah, man.
31 days of the
Hey,
month, you're still going to be
when
making
I
progress.
saw your like the pictures from last year, and you kept sending me the progress pictures, I'm like, this is a badass dude.
Yeah, it's been quite the transformation. I lost about 15 pounds since, let's say, August, but since last January, I
Uh-huh.
had a shoulder injury from gymnastics last January
Yeah.
2018. So this is like my comeback and really just like getting back in shape, getting my habits back. And yeah, it can happen. You just gotta, I say you think, like my
Yeah.
friend had this quote I'm gonna finish off with, like, you really feel like in the short run, when you compare week to week or month to month, that you're not making progress.
Uh-huh.
But when you look in the year's perspective, you really see how much fucking progress you're
Exactly.
making.
Yep. 100%.
All right, guys, that's Jeff the trainer. He's going to tell you where you can find him on social media. This will be posted on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. So stay tuned for those links for those in my newsletter. So, Jeff, just tell them where they can find you.
Yeah. You guys can find me on Instagram at Jeff the Trainer, and Facebook as well at Jeff the Trainer.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. Thanks for jumping on the
I
podcast.
appreciate you having me, man.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care.